6 weeks ago, the President of the United States posted 5 words that I want you to remember. He said, quote, "Unconditional surrender, nothing less." He said he would bomb Iran back to the Stone Age. He said he would erase an entire civilization. He said the most powerful military in human history would crush Iran so completely that there would be nothing left to negotiate. That was 6 weeks ago. Today, right now, as I am recording this, the Vice President of the United States is sitting on Air Force Two, flying to Pakistan to sit across the table from Iran and ask for a deal. Not demand, ask. Let me say that again because I need you to feel the weight of what just happened. The country that said unconditional surrender is now flying to someone else's country to negotiate on someone else's terms using someone else's framework in a hotel chosen by someone else with a mediator aligned with its biggest rival. This is not a negotiation. This is a surrender that has not been named yet. And by the end of this video, you will understand why I say that. You will understand why America has already lost this negotiation before a single word has been spoken in Islamabad. And here is what makes this truly extraordinary. I am going to show you why it does not matter whether these talks succeed or fail or drag on for months, because in every single scenario, every single one, the outcome is the same. America has already lost. Let's go. To understand why America lost, I need to take you back 40 days. And I need to show you something that I think no one has framed properly yet. What happened in those 40 days was not just a military failure. It was the fastest collapse of a coercive strategy by a superpower in modern history. Think about this. The United States spent 20 years failing in Afghanistan. It spent 8 years failing in Vietnam. It spent 3 years failing in Korea. In Iran, it took 40 days. On February 28th, the United States and Israel launched Operation Epic Fury, the largest air campaign since the Iraq War. On day one, they killed Iran's Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. On day one, the most protected man in Iran dead in the first hours. And for a moment, for maybe 12 hours, Washington thought this was over. They were catastrophically wrong. Within days, while American bombs were still falling, Iran closed the Strait of Hormuz. And within 8 days, while the war was still raging, Iran's assembly of experts appointed a new supreme leader, Mojtaba Khamenei, the old leader's son. 8 days. Think about that. The most powerful military on earth assassinated the most protected man in Iran, and within 8 days, the system had replaced him and kept fighting. There was no power vacuum. There was no collapse. The regime absorbed the most devastating blow imaginable and did not even pause. And that closure of the strait, that single strategic decision, did more damage to America than every Iranian missile combined. Because when Hormuz closes, 20% of the world's oil stops moving. 600 ships stuck. Oil above $90 a barrel. Every gas station in America, every factory in Europe, every shipping company in the world feeling the pain. And then Iran started firing back, not just at Israel, at everyone. Kuwait, 28 drone attacks in a single day. UAE, 35. Saudi Arabia's Ras Tanura refinery hit. Bahrain's Babco refinery hit so badly, they declared force majeure. Even Oman, a neutral country, was struck. The United States responded the only way it knows how. More bombs. They bombed Car Island, Iran's biggest oil hub. They bombed military infrastructure. They bombed command centers. Over 3,000 Iranians were killed, and none of it worked. Iran kept fighting through all of it. And on April 7th, when Trump made his final threat, when he said, "A whole civilization will die tonight," when he gave Iran a deadline measured in hours, not days. What happened? Iran said no, and Trump blinked 2 hours before his own deadline. The most powerful man in the world set a countdown clock and then stopped it himself. That is not strength. That is the definition of a bluff being called. And now, 3 days later, his vice president is on a plane to Islamabad. I want you to hold that image in your mind as I show you the 5 proofs. Proof number 1, Iran wrote the rules of this negotiation. And this is the proof that I think is the most devastating, because once you see it, you cannot unsee it. In any negotiation, there is a concept called framing. The side that sets the frame controls the outcome. This is not opinion. This is decades of research in negotiation theory. The person who writes the menu decides what gets eaten. Iran submitted a 10 point plan to the United States through Pakistan. 10 points written by Iran on Iran's terms, reflecting Iran's interests. And what did the President of the United States say? He said, and this is a direct quote, "It is a workable basis on which to negotiate." I want you to pause and think about what just happened. Iran, a country with a GDP smaller than the state of Texas, wrote the terms, and America, the largest economy in human history, said, yes, we will negotiate based on your terms. Let me tell you what is in Iran's 10 point plan, because this is where it gets truly remarkable. Point 1, Iran demands control of all transit through the Strait of Hormuz, coordinated with Iran's armed forces. This means Iran keeps the key to the global economy. Point 2, the complete withdrawal of all U.S. combat forces from all bases in the Middle East. Every soldier, every base, gone. Point 3, full compensation for all war damages. Iran is asking America to pay for the bombs America dropped on Iran. Point 4, the lifting of every sanction, every UN resolution, every IAEA restriction. Total economic freedom. 5, Iran's right to nuclear enrichment. These are not the demands of a country that was just bombed for 40 days. These are the demands of a country that won, and America called them workable. I have studied negotiations for years, and I cannot find a single parallel in modern history where the most powerful country in the world accepted the framework of a country it just attacked. This does not happen, except it just did. That is proof number 1. Proof number 2, the geography tells you who won. I want you to think about something very simple. Where are the talks throughout history? The location of negotiations reveals the power dynamic more accurately than anything that is set at the table. The Treaty of Versailles was in France because France won. The Japanese surrender was on the USS Missouri because America won. The Camp David Accords were in America because America was the dominant power. These talks are in Islamabad, not Washington, not New York, not Geneva, not any location where America has influence. Islamabad, the capital of Pakistan, China's closest strategic ally, the country where China has invested over $60 billion through Belt and Road. The country whose foreign minister flew to Beijing on March 31st, sat down with Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi, and then came back and brokered this ceasefire. Do you see what happened? Pakistan went to China first, got China's approval, then brokered the deal. The talks are happening on ground that China helped prepare. And here is a detail that I find extraordinary. The last U.S. vice president to visit Pakistan was Joe Biden in January 2011. That was 15 years ago. 15 years. And now Vance is going back not for a state visit, not to sign a trade deal, but to negotiate the end of a war that America could not win. And according to Axios, this will be the highest level direct meeting between the United States and Iran since the 1979 Islamic Revolution, 47 years. For 47 years, America refused to sit across from Iran at this level. And now that it finally does, it is happening not in Washington, not in New York, but in Islamabad on ground that China and Pakistan prepared. That is proof number 2. Proof number 3, Iran is picking America's team. This is the detail that should be front page news everywhere, and somehow nobody is talking about it. During the preliminary talks in February before the war, the American side was represented by Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner. These are Trump's men, his personal picks, his trusted negotiators. Then the war started while those talks were still happening. America bombed Iran while Witkoff and Kushner were still technically at the negotiating table. Iran views this as the ultimate betrayal. So when it came time to negotiate the ceasefire, Iran said, "We refuse to talk to Witkoff and Kushner. Remove them." And America did. I need you to understand how extraordinary this is. The United States of America removed its own negotiating team because Iran demanded it. America let Iran veto American officials, and only after those two were removed did Iran agree to the ceasefire. Now, those same two men are going back to Islamabad, but the power dynamic has already been established. Iran has demonstrated that it can decide who is acceptable and who is not. Iran demanded J.D. Vance specifically because Iran sees him as more open to ending the conflict. This is a principle in game theory called selection power. The side that chooses the players controls the game. Iran is choosing America's players. When in American history has an adversary been allowed to select the American negotiating team? When has a country that America just bombed been given veto power over who represents the president? I cannot find a precedent because there is none. That is proof number 3. Proof number 4, America's leverage has evaporated. Leverage is everything in a negotiation. Without it, you are not negotiating. You are begging. So, let me walk you through America's 3 cards. Military force, after 40 days of bombing, 3,000 dead, and the most powerful military in history, unleashing everything short of nuclear weapons, Iran did not surrender. Iran closed Hormuz and said, "Come talk when you are serious." Trump threatened to destroy a whole civilization. Then he backed down 2 hours later. In game theory, this is called the credibility trap. Once you make the ultimate threat and fail to follow through, every future threat is worthless. Sanctions, nearly 50 years of sanctions, and Iran is still here. China is buying over 90% of Iran's oil. When the world's second largest economy ignores your sanctions are a piece of paper. Allies, Trump attacked NATO for not helping. The Gulf states are furious. The EU is distancing itself. America walked into this war with allies and is walking into this negotiation alone. All 3 cards gone. And here is the detail that I think captures everything I'm saying in one single moment. Just today, hours before boarding his plane to Pakistan, Trump told NBC News, and I quote, "They have been conquered. They have no military." Let me say that again. The President of the United States said Iran has been conquered and has no military. And then he sent his vice president to negotiate with them. If Iran has been conquered, why are you negotiating? If they have no military, why did you agree to a ceasefire? If they have been defeated, why is your vice president on a plane to Islamabad right now? And while Trump is saying Iran has been conquered, Iranian state media is saying the exact opposite. Iran is claiming, and I quote, "a resounding victory by surviving the American and Israeli onslaught and bringing Washington to the table." So America says Iran has been conquered and Iran says Iran has won. Who is telling the truth? Here's how you answer that question. You do not listen to what they say. you watch what they do. And what America is doing right now is flying its vice president to Pakistan to negotiate. That is not what a winner does. That is what a country does when it has run out of options. Now look at Iran's leverage. One single card, Hormuz. Right now, as I speak, fewer than 10 ships are passing through the strait per day. On the first day of the ceasefire, only 5 made it through. Before the war, 110 passed every day. 600 vessels are stuck in the Gulf. Iran has published shipping charts showing mine locations and alternative routes coordinated with Iran's Revolutionary Guard. This means Iran controls who passes and who does not. Iran has turned the most important shipping lane in the world into a toll road, and Iran is a toll collector. America has empty threats. Iran has HORM. That is not a negotiation. That is a shakedown, and America is on the wrong side of it. That is proof number 4. Proof number 5, America cannot control its own ally. And this one might be the most devastating of all because it reveals a structural weakness that no amount of negotiating skill can fix. Within hours of the ceasefire being announced, Israel launched one of the heaviest bombardments of Lebanon in the entire war. 303 people killed in one day. Children, medics, entire apartment buildings. The UN High Commissioner for Human Rights called it, quote, nothing short of horrific. The International Red Cross expressed outrage. The Pope called it truly unacceptable. And Iran immediately said this is a violation of the ceasefire. But here is where it gets truly absurd. America says Lebanon is not part of the deal. Israel says Lebanon is not part of the deal. But Pakistan, the mediator who wrote the deal, says Lebanon is part of the deal. And Iran says Lebanon is part of the deal. So the deal is already broken before the talks have started. And it was broken not by Iran, not by Pakistan, but by America's own ally. Trump told Netanyahu to be, quote, a little more low-key in Lebanon. The next day, Israel bombed a bridge. And when asked about it, Vance called the entire Lebanon situation a, quote, legitimate misunderstanding. A legitimate misunderstanding, 300 people are dead. And the Vice President of the United States calls it a misunderstanding. That is not diplomacy. That is an admission that America does not control what happens in its own ceasefire. Think about what Iran sees when it looks at this. Iran sees an America that cannot deliver on its own agreements, an America that promises a ceasefire and then watches its ally massacre 300 people the next day. An America that asks its partner to be low-key and gets ignored. An America whose vice president calls 300 dead civilians a misunderstanding. In negotiation theory, there is a concept called the principal agent problem. It means the person at the table cannot guarantee what their side will actually do. America has the worst principal agent problem in diplomatic history right now. Anything Vance agrees to in Islamabad, Netanyahu can destroy in Beirut the next morning. Iran knows this, and Iran will use it. At any moment, Iran can point to Israeli strikes and say, you are not negotiating in good faith. Your side is still killing people. We are walking away, and there is nothing America can do about it. Nothing. That is proof number 5. Now, I want to show you that this is not new. This pattern has repeated throughout history, and every time it ends the same way. Paris, January 1973. The United States had been bombing Vietnam for 8 years, more bombs than all of World War II combined. And at the end of all that destruction, Henry Kissinger sat down in Paris and negotiated a peace agreement. America called it peace with honor. 2 years later, Saigon fell. and the last Americans were evacuated by helicopter from the embassy roof. That was not honor. That was defeat dressed in a suit. Geneva, April 1988. The Soviet Union had been fighting in Afghanistan for 9 years. 15,000 Soviet soldiers dead, billions of rubles spent, and at the end of all that sacrifice, the Soviets sat down in Geneva and signed the Geneva Accords. They agreed to withdraw. 3 years later, the Soviet Union ceased to exist. And now Islamabad, April 2026, the United States has been bombing Iran for 40 days, thousands dead, billions spent, and now America is sitting down to negotiate. I'm not saying that every negotiation leads to collapse. I'm saying something much more specific. When a superpower uses maximum military force against a smaller country, fails to achieve its objectives, and is then forced to negotiate, history tells us exactly what happens next. The superpower makes concessions it swore it would never make. The superpower withdraws from positions it swore it would never leave, and the superpower's global standing never fully recovers. Paris, Geneva, Islamabad. The pattern does not change because the empire does not learn. Now, let me show you why it does not matter what happens in Islamabad. There are 3 possible outcomes, and in all 3, America loses. Scenario 1, the talks succeed. Any deal will include sanctions, relief, Iranian control over Hormuz, and reduced American military presence. America went to war demanding unconditional surrender and ended up signing a compromise. When you start at unconditional surrender and end at compromise, that is not a deal. That is a retreat measured in words. Scenario 2, the talks fail, bombing resumes, Hormuz closes, oil spikes past $100. America is back to square one, except now it has proven that its military cannot force a decision and its diplomacy cannot close a deal, a double failure. Scenario 3, the talks drag on. This is what I think is most likely. No deal, no collapse. Just an extended ceasefire and endless negotiations. And while America is stuck in diplomatic quicksand, China is buying Iranian oil at a discount, expanding Belt and Road, making semiconductor breakthroughs, while America is making ceasefire extensions. Every day America spends on Iran is a day China spends on the future. This is what I explained in my last video. While 2 countries are fighting, the 3rd country wins. 3 scenarios, 3 losses. The negotiation is a trap, and America is already inside it. So let me give you 3 predictions, and I want you to write these down because we are going to come back and check every single one. Prediction number 1, there will be no comprehensive peace deal within the 2-week ceasefire window. The gap between the 2 sides is too wide. Iran demands enrichment rights and Hormuz's control. America demands zero enrichment and free passage. These positions cannot be bridged in 11 days. The ceasefire will be extended. The talks will continue, but there will be no deal. Prediction number 2. Within 60 days, America will quietly abandon at least one of its stated red lines. Either uranium enrichment or sanctions or military presence. They will not announce it publicly. They will frame it as a compromise, but the substance will be clear. America will give up something it swore it would never give up. Prediction number 3. Within 90 days, China will have a formal seat in the next round of negotiations, not as an observer, not as a back channel, as a participant because Iran will demand it, Pakistan will support it, Russia will insist on it, and America will not have the leverage to say no. And when that happens, when China sits at the table, the transformation of the global order will be visible for everyone to see. 3 predictions. Save this video, come back and check. Let me leave you with one final thought. There's a moment in every empire's history when the gap between what it says and what it can do becomes visible to the world. When the words are still powerful, but the reality behind them has already crumbled. For the Soviet Union, that moment was Geneva 1988. For the British Empire, it was Suez 1956. For Athens, it was the Peace of Nias in 421 BC. For America, I believe that moment is Islamabad 2026. 40 days ago, the president said unconditional surrender. Today, his vice president is on a plane to Pakistan, flying through the night, carrying a briefcase full of concessions to offer a country that America just spent 40 days trying to destroy. The distance between those two moments, between unconditional surrender and flying to Islamabad with concessions, that distance is not measured in miles. It is measured in the decline of an empire. America did not lose at the negotiating table. America lost the moment it realized it needed one. That is my analysis. This is not prophecy. This is game theory and structural history. The talks start tomorrow morning. Let us see what happens. I will see you in the next